Is Ray
Rocky, is
on?
that you singing?
Who?
Yes, on.
Ray's on.
Ray is on. Answer was yes.
I
Yeah,
thought
Ray
Ray,
Dempsey's on.
I thought Rocky said you were the one singing.
No, he said I was the first one on. I think
Oh,
that's what
first
he
one.
said.
Okay. Rabbi, you're back, right?
I'm back.
Okay. Anybody watching on? What would he be? Steve's left the room.
Yeah, is it?
What?
It says please stand by.
Okay. Nurses, how's everything in Las
Okay,
Vegas?
Good. Ray's on. Ray is on. I thought Rocky said you were the one singing.
There's a delay in this.
Joe got free.
Joe, you're on. Joe? Joe?
You're on the screen, Mike.
Okay. Okay, we ready? Okay. There's a lot of feedback and okay, you're gonna mute that. Okay. We're gonna have Stephen Hennessy open this with prayer, and Stephen's started with us many moons ago, and he's from California. So, Stephen, if you'd open us with prayer.
I'd love to. All right, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for giving us this opportunity to get together and to talk about your chosen people. We thank you for providing people who have great knowledge of this, that are able to impart that knowledge on us. We just want to pray for receptive minds tonight, Lord, that you'll keep our minds open and that we'll be able to learn a little bit more about Israel and what you have planned for them, Lord, and how we can support them. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. We sent the books out to all the young men, so you probably all have received your book. And this book right here, Why Israel is Important to You. And so if you have not received that, let your director know so we can get more out to you. And anybody that needs any more books, we'll send them to you if you just let us know. We have Rabbi Spiro on here again tonight, and I just love the rabbi. I love to hear him teach. He did a wonderful job on this book. I think most of you would say, and you've called me and said it's a great book and you appreciate the book. So, Rabbi, you can hear me. You're in Pennsylvania somewhere, right?
Tonight we're in Pennsylvania, yes.
Okay, and
sometimes we're in Ohio.
And you're familiar with the nation's capital, Crestline, Ohio, right?
Absolutely. I go there all the time to meet with the very important legislators in Crestline.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Rabbi. Okay, Rabbi, tell us what's happening in this week, and since we last talked to you in February, maybe a little bit we can bring everybody up to date on what's happening with Israel, and then if we'll have some questions from the young men about the book.
Well, a lot has happened since we spoke last. It seems that every day the Obama administration, President Obama, is trying to do anything that he can to isolate Israel, to demonize Israel, to find all types of problems with Israel. I think that the president is not happy with the strong relationship that historically the United States has had with Israel. And of course, it's based on the biblical word. America was founded on the Bible. And the Bible strongly reassures us, people of faith, that the land of Israel populated by the Jewish people is extremely special in the eyes of God and religious people. This is something that President Obama is not comfortable with. Every single president up until Obama has been very comfortable with the idea of the Jews returning back to their land, that it was a land anointed by God, appointed by God for the Jewish people. So many of our presidents have been very comfortable with that idea because they're biblical men. The first president in our history who does not seem to relate to that and somehow inside feels very uncomfortable is our president, Mr. Obama. And I'm asked about this. Why is this? And I say, well, because he's really the first president that we've ever had that was not raised on the Bible. He was not raised on the Judeo-Christian outlook, the Old and the New Testament. No one is exactly sure where he was born. We haven't seen his birth certificate, but many say he was born in Hawaii. That's fine. But we do know that he was raised in Indonesia, which is a Muslim country. His father was Muslim. After his mother divorced his father, he had a stepfather who was also Muslim. The first father was named Obama. He was Muslim. His stepfather was named Suharto, was Muslim. He was raised in Indonesia, which is a Muslim country. And because of that, the touchstone of his life was not the Bible like it is here in America, but it was the Quran. And the Quran is antagonistic to the specialness of Israel and the relationship of Israel to the Jewish people. It's antagonistic to the Jewish and Christian fraternity because Judaism and Christianity is a partnership. He was raised with that. He went to madrasa, which is Muslim school. So not only does he not have a feeling for Israel, but he was raised with the Arab, the Muslim idea regarding Israel, and they're hostile to Israel. And for the first 6 years, though he did show quite often to those of us who are focusing on these things, we did see hostility to Israel. But now in the last phase of his presidency, we hope, the last phase, he has openly shown his hostility, and every day from the administration there's something coming out accusing Israel of this, accusing it of that, and it's become obvious that he's trying to make a rupture, a great break, a divide between Israel and America, and between the hearts and minds of the Americans and the hearts and minds of the Israelis, of the Jewish people. There's no question that he's even said that he wants to take the old city of Jerusalem, the city that King David built. King David basically made the city of Jerusalem. Before King David, it was just a village, and he made it, he built it, and he made the plans for the temple, and then his son, of course, actually built the temple. David did not live to put into place his plans. That happens quite often. People have wonderful plans, but they have to leave it for their children to actually implement these plans. And it's in Jerusalem that the temple was built. It was in Jerusalem centuries before where Abraham actually was willing to bring Isaac as a sacrifice. It was in Jerusalem that the Shekhinah, the presence of God, came into the holy temple, to the Holy of Holies, right by the Ark. Jerusalem is the sacred capital, the eternal capital of the Jewish people, and he wants to take that older part of Jerusalem, the historic part, the Davidic, the David part of Jerusalem, and he wants to hand it over to the Arabs and to the Muslims. And it would be a tragedy. It is something that, in my mind, is absolutely illegal, but the symbolism of it is very important, because whoever controls and is given ownership of Jerusalem basically is given ownership of Israel. Because Jerusalem is the heart of Israel. It's a symbol. When we talk about Zion, let's say we're Zionists. In Hebrew, the word is Zion. When we talk about Zion, Zion means Jerusalem. Mount Zion is where David is buried, in Jerusalem. Mount Zion is where Jesus had the Last Supper. If you take Mount Zion, you take Jerusalem, and as Barack Obama wants, you hand it over to the Muslims, then you're basically saying that the Muslim faith is supreme. That's the symbolism of it, and that's why it has to be stopped. In this book, Why Israel Matters to You, one of the reasons I mentioned why it matters is because this is a war over whose revelation is true, whose holy book is true. Is it the Bible, which promises the land of Israel to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Or is it the Quran that denies that? This is really a conflict over the truth of the Quran versus the Bible. There's no question in my mind the Bible is true. And the Quran is a book for Muslims written by a man, Muhammad. Muhammad was just a man. He was a general. Many like to call him a prophet. I don't. The prophets were Elijah. He was a prophet. Samuel was a prophet. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. They were prophets. The Quran is a book written by a man. But right now, at this point in history, you have an Islam that is saying that is the holy book. That's the revelation. And it's all centered around, really, Jerusalem and Israel. If the Muslims can take Jerusalem through the help of Barack Obama from the Jewish people, then it's an assault on the veracity, the truth of the Bible. Now, in the long run, Jerusalem will, of course, be the eternal, forever capital of Israel and the Jewish people. But sometimes we have seen in the past where it was taken from the Jews during the time of the Romans and certain times of the Byzantines. And then, of course, the Muslims came later in the year 800, and they took Jerusalem. That's why there was the need in the 1100s or the late 1000s for the Crusades, because the Muslims had come to Jerusalem to make a claim for it, and they conquered it, because there was no Jewish army then. The Romans were gone. The Byzantines were basically weak. They were over in Constantinople, and they were able to just come in and conquer it. And then they made a claim that they are now the true religion. That's why the English king had to send the Crusaders over back to Israel to try to recapture it from the Muslims, because the Muslims were there proclaiming they were the true religion. And so this is what Barack Obama is trying to do. He's not friendly towards the Judeo-Christian ethos. People don't want to hear it because they can't believe that about their president, but this is quite a different presidency. Without me going into other reasons to show, but it's quite obvious that this is the first president that we've ever seen that doesn't seem to have this love for America or the American people. He's transforming America into ways that are shrinking the middle class. He says that we're not a Christian country and that somehow Muslims were here from the beginning of our founding. Now, these are not true. These are not true statements. This country was founded on Christian principles, Judeo-Christian principles. When we say Judeo-Christian, what we mean is the Old and the New Testament. Judeo and Christian, the Old and the New Testament. Judeo-Christian means the Christian perspective of the Old Testament. When the president says this is not a Christian country, that's a malevolent, that's a harmful, that's a very poisonous thing to say, because that's who we are. How would you like if someone would come to your family, let's say that your family is named Johnson, and says, your family is not Johnson, your grandfathers were not Johnson. It's a terrible sin against your family, because your heritage is what you have. You can only have a future if you first acknowledge your past. If you know what your past is, then you can live it in the present, and then you can hand it over to the future. But when people try to take away your heritage, they're taking away your future. They're stealing something from your children. When he says that this is not a Christian country, he's stealing the heritage, the essence of America. Being a Christian country means that we have certain values. Our values come from the Bible. When Obama says that the Muslims have been part of the development of America from the beginning, this is just not true. There might have been 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 Muslims that were here. There actually were some slaves that were brought from Africa by the Arab slave traders, and they forced Islam on them. But Islam has not been part of the founding, the development of America. This is a lie. This is a false narrative. It's like as if we have a false prophet using the bully pulpit on Pennsylvania Avenue against us. And that's all that's involved in this war regarding Israel. What is the true narrative? Well, just like President Obama is saying that we're not a Christian country, well, he's basically saying that Israel doesn't belong to the Jews. Jerusalem belongs to the Muslims. When Obama says that Islam was here from the beginning and the founding, it's not true. Washington, Jefferson, none of them were Islamic. Their inspiration was the Bible. Sometimes it was from some of the philosophers in Scotland or England. Maybe some of the things that they had read from Cicero and from the Romans, but nothing from the Quran. It's a false narrative regarding America. And he's trying to do the same thing regarding Israel. He's trying to steal the Jewishness, the special Jewishness of Israel, from the Jewish people and the world and the Judeo-Christian community. When we say we're a Christian nation, what's important about that here in America is we're saying that we live by the values of Christianity. We don't live by the values of the Quran. We don't live by the values of Muhammad. We live by the values of Jesus and Moses. We live by their values. The values of Christianity and Judaism are the values of Jehovah. They're not the values of Allah. This is very important. Very important for people to internalize. When the president makes a statement that somehow that Islam has been part of the formation of America, what he's insinuating is that we can live by Islamic values, by the Quran, perhaps even some Sharia. That's forcing upon us an outlook on life that is not ours, that we don't want. The blessedness that came to this country was precisely because we lived by a Judeo-Christian ethos. So we are now in a worldwide battle that has far more to do than simply just a little bit of territory of Israel. Israel's a small country. It produces a lot because it has an energetic people. It has the people, the Jewish people, that are interested in being creative and productive and not chopping off people's heads and not stoning women. But also it survives because of the grace of God. What's at stake here when we support Israel is we're supporting the name of God. God ties His being, His word, to the survival of Israel. When you support Israel, you're supporting the world. You're supporting the word of God. That's why it's a very personal fight. The big lie that the Obama administration, the leftists who are against Christianity, it's all part of the same thing. Those that are against Christianity in this country, they're also the same ones that want to take Israel from the Jewish people. Those people that are for continually campaigning in behalf of abortion anytime, anywhere, any place, for any reason, are the same people you will see denouncing Israel. Those people that are saying that marriage is not between a man and a woman, but between all types of other configurations, denying what God has told us about marriage and family. You'll find those same people trying to shrink Israel and denounce and demonize Israel. It's all part of this great battle. We are either those that believe in a Judeo-Christian ethos, a biblical outlook, and these are our values and constitute who we are, or we're just pagans, neo-pagans. And so this is what the fight of Israel is about. And if you will look, you'll see those that are on the left, they're anti-Israel, and those that love America. Most people that love America, most Americans that are patriotic about America, they love Israel too. And most Americans that are always critical of America, they want to transform America. They're the ones that want to change and transform Israel from a Jewish state and give it over to Islam. So this is all part of our fight. There's a lot of things to say, and I spoke about it the first time. But for me also, this is a test regarding one's character. Everything in life is a test. And it's good to think that, because if you look at your life as a series of tests, then every day is very important. You know, when you're younger, sometimes you get up and say, it's another day, another day. There's an expression, to kill time. When you get older, you never would say, what can I do to kill time? You want to savor every second that you have. When you realize how important life is, you never say, what can I do to kill time? Time is your most precious commodity. When you get up in the morning and you get up in the day and you realize that every day is a test. Can you pass the test? Can you on this day? God brings you many tests, and life brings you these tests and these challenges, and it's our goal, it's our mission to pass those tests, to be honest and to be a good family person and to be a person of character. And character means being able to stand up for the truth even in the face of a great onslaught of popular culture against you. And that's what this whole Israel battle represents to the individual. It really is a test of our character. The media, the news media, is against Israel. The President of the United States and his minions is against Israel. 1.5 billion Muslims are against Israel. So many of the moneyed interests are against Israel. In the campuses today, the professors are against Israel. It just shows you, though, when you have a group of the professors and all these people in the media and the leftists, and they're against Israel, it must be because they're against the wholesomeness that Israel represents. They're against the purity. They're against the biblical word that Israel represents. Now, can we stand up to that? That's the test of our character. You go on a college campus, today you're going to be demonized if you stand up for Israel. Just like you're going to be demonized, too, if you stand up too much for America. The same colleges, the same professors are always denouncing America. You've got colleges now like in UCLA, they don't even want you to put up the American flag. They say the American flag is offensive. These professors that are living in America, and they're getting the blessings and the fruits of America, and wonderful salaries and freedom to say what they want because they have the protection of America, they look at the American flag and they call that offensive. If it's offensive, they really shouldn't live here. But this is the test. If you're on a college campus, if you're in a high school, and you're among people, now it's the popular thing to be against Israel or to denounce your country. It's the test of character. Can you pass that test? That's all part of this fight. It's not a fight just over a little bit of land. Thus far, God has been with the Jewish people. He's returned them, as he said in the Bible. He said he would return them. He said twice that they would be exiled because of their sins. Not that the Jews have sinned any more than any other people, but if you live in the land of Israel, you have to live on a higher plane. But he said, although I will exile you, I will return. I will return you from the four corners of the earth, and he has done that. The Jews, who for 75 years lived under communism and had no freedom of religion or freedom of speech in Russia, all of a sudden they find themselves coming from that corner way up north to Israel. The Jews who were in Ethiopia, people have forgotten all about the Jews in Ethiopia. Way deep in the jungles of Ethiopia, way in the south, they've returned now to Israel. Jews that were in Argentina, in the southern part of South America, they're returning to Israel. Jews in the Ukraine, from all four corners of the world, are returning to Israel, just as it has been predicted, that I will gather you from the four corners of the earth and bring you back to Zion. We are in the middle of the fulfillment of the prophecies. A land that for 2,000 years was barren and dry and nothing grew. When the Romans were there, it was barren and dry. When the Byzantines were there, it was barren and dry. When the Muslims took over, it was barren and dry. When the British Empire was there, it was barren and dry. Only when the Jews returned after 2,000 years did the land become fruitful, as the prophet said. The desert would blossom, would flower, there'd be food, there'd be produce, there'd be sunshine, there'd be children laughing in the streets of Jerusalem. Because only the Jews can make that land prosper and flourish. Is there any country that for 2,000 years that was under the tutelage of great empires and nothing happened? It was thistles and thorns, as Mark Twain said when he visited it in the late 19th century. And all of a sudden come some bedraggled Jews from Europe, and they have the power to reclaim the land and to make the springs gush forth and to land fertile and to be a fruited plain. This is what the prophets talk about, and we're living in this time. So it matters to us because we want to be on board, not only with God's word, but with God's fulfillment of his prophecy. And all of us are emissaries for this prophecy, emissaries for our Judeo-Christian outlook, and it's happening in our lifetime.
Rabbi, we appreciate that. Any questions? We'll take the questions from the boys or the adults or anybody wants to come forth.
Oh no. I think the conference call went away.
Okay.
Let me get back on it.
Okay. Stephen's going to get back. I have a couple questions, Rabbi.
No
I
one on the
had.
conference call can hear. No one on the conference call can hear.
Somebody can hear me.
No, I don't know why.
You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I think everybody else has been cut off, so we're going to get back on.
I don't know why it hung up on it.
You dial 9.
Yeah.
You got to dial.
Welcome to the conference call, a service of www.freeconference.com. When you have entered your conference, please announce yourself.
Just go ahead.
Your access code is not correct. We received
Do it again.
55641.
So you keep hanging up.
641.
And it hung up again.
Okay.
Here, I'll call in on this. Or can I use your phone to call in?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Coach. I don't know why it's disconnected there.
I can hear you, Coach.
Yeah, I think everybody else is cut off, Rabbi.
Welcome to the conference call. You will now enter the conference. Please announce yourself.
Okay, we're back. We got cut off. Any questions from anybody? And I'm going to start, Rabbi. The size of Israel, so small. Why can they defend? How can they defend themselves?
You know, the size of Israel is about the size of New Jersey. And the Arab Muslim countries that surround them would be like the whole size of North America, basically. Makes you wonder, why do the Muslims have to have this little piece of land? They've got land that's basically as big as the United States, Canada, Mexico, Latin America, almost South America, compared to this little size state of Israel, the size of New Jersey. They don't really need it. They just want it because the Jews have it, and they want it because they want to lay claim that somehow they're the superior religion to Judaism and Christianity. They don't want the Jews to have it. How they survive? Two ways. Number one, they always have to be a step ahead. Militarily, strategically, thinking. And they have a society that is productive. People sacrifice. What they do is they go to the army, they make sacrifices for the country, and the average Jewish person in Israel, his purpose is not to behead people or to stone women. His purpose is to defend his country. But then the second thing is, there's no question, it's God. At this point, God has been protecting them. There can be no answer. In life, we have to make effort, but the end, if our efforts are successful or not, depends if God infuses our efforts with success. God is not going to help us if we don't help ourselves, but He will help us if He finds that His name is magnified through helping us. And so there's no question that there's God's will at this point is to keep the Jewish people in Israel and keep Israel as a Jewish nation, a Jewish country, not a Muslim country.
Other questions? Anybody have any questions? Any questions? Rabbi, we've had other presidents that have tried to give some land away. Bill Clinton, George Bush, Colin Powell had that peace road marked to peace. Can you talk about that a little bit?
We've always had, in Europe and in America, different administrations and people that had these so-called roadmaps to peace. Now, we know at the end it doesn't lead to peace because the Israelis gave Gaza to the Arabs for the sake of peace, and they didn't get peace. Instead, what they got was thousands of missiles. And every time Israel has tried to give land with the hope, they give land to the Muslims, to the Arabs, with the hope that the Muslims will now recognize Israel. What they do with that land is, instead of cultivating it and making something productive out of it, they use the land as a platform to throw missiles at Jewish children and Jewish families and Jewish farms. But there is this fantasy that somehow if the Israelis give up more land, there'll be peace. It never will be. What will happen is all this land will just end up to be terrorist states, territory for terrorists to plan against America and Israel. But after a while, people, administrations or Colin Powell, they stopped. They tried for a while and they stopped. Obama, I fear, is different. I fear that one of the centerpieces for Barack Hussein Obama is to strip Jerusalem, the old city, from Israel, and to expel many of the Jews from their homes, and to give much of this land to Islam. I think that's one of the centerpieces. I think he came to transform America into a more Marxist vision that he has. And the second thing was to squeeze Israel, shrink Israel. It's just not one diplomatic effort. I think this is going to be one of the major focuses of his whole administration. Listen, right now, he's doing an agreement with Iran, unless it falls through, that's going to basically enable Iran to have the bomb, be able to produce the nuclear bomb that Iran says they'll use as soon as they have it. They're going to use to destroy Israel, and they'll also use it to hurt America. They don't have to have missiles that can go all the way across to hurt us. They can put this nuclear material in smaller little suitcases, and if they can get it into America piecemeal, it's called a dirty bomb, you can blow up an American city. And he's trying to enable them. The world was doing very good by cutting off all types of economic activity from Iran, and Iran was feeling it and was thinking that maybe it wasn't worth making this bomb because of the economic sanctions. And then unilaterally, for no reason, Obama just lifted them, all these sanctions, which is very suspicious. Why would he do that? It seems that he's trying to enable them to have the bomb, not to use the bomb, but to have the power and the threat that a bomb would give Iran. So we've had people in the past that have tried to make these types of formulas, but then they give up after a while because they realize that it's futile. No matter how many times the Israelis make concessions, it doesn't make a difference. Obama's different. Even with other people, when they tried to force this on Israel, but they didn't demonize Israel. But what Obama's done in the last few months is every week there's something to demonize Israel, to try to make Israel a pariah state. And this is a president that has no problem sitting down with the Iranian mullahs who want to destroy America and say death to America. He has no problem meeting all types of unsavory, terrible characters, of Hugo Chavez when he was alive. The only person in the only country that seems to just bother him so much is Israel, a democracy, a country with such wonderful improvements it's given to mankind. He has something in him. He wants to hurt Israel. He wants to shrink Israel. He wants to make it smaller. He's very dangerous for America. He's certainly dangerous for Israel. But listen, we have the Lord Almighty, and He doesn't sleep and He doesn't slumber, the Lord Almighty. He will protect us.
Any other questions? I know there's a delay on this. Stephen said there's a delay, and any other questions?
Yeah, Coach, this is Nurses from Las Vegas.
Okay.
Who is Rabbi Spiro, who is behind Obama? Who else is supporting this idea? Because for many years, like you said, under the former presidents, there's been a tremendous support in the Judeo-Christians. We all seen his support for Muslim nations, the sanctions he has pulled off on Iran, and all these things that we've seen. Christians are being massacred worldwide, and nothing is being done from his end. But where is he getting the support or what is the answer?
And this is a very important question, because Islam is massacring Christians all over the world. Not 10 or 20, tens of thousands. They're burning churches precisely because they're churches. And they're burning the churches by saying, you see, Allah is greater than Jesus, because Allah is able to burn the churches, and where is Jesus? This, for Islam, is a religious war. Islam is raping women precisely because they're Christian in front of fathers. They're doing this to Christians in Africa and the Middle East. Christian communities that have been in the areas of Lebanon and Syria and Iraq since the time of Paul. Since the time of Paul, when Paul went north from Israel into Lebanon and parts of Syria, parts of Turkey, they're being decimated. And the President of the United States sits by. He says that, oh, those that are doing it, it's a junior varsity team. He makes light of it. Just like he made light of the attack against the Jewish people in the restaurant in Paris. He said, oh, it's just some random incident at some deli. As if, I don't know, everybody's just eating pickles and corned beef and they're being slaughtered doesn't make a difference. He seems very indifferent. He does not seem touched at all by the genocide against Christians. And that's because it's coming from the hand of Islam. And his heart is with Islam. I don't think he's a religious man. And that's the problem people make. They think, well, I don't see any religiousness, Islamic religiousness from Obama. But there are many people that might not be religiously part of a group, but they are ethnically, they identify with the group. His roots are from Islam. His father, biologically and ethnically, is Islamic. He identifies with their narrative. We've never had someone who could sit in the face of so much suffering by Christians and Jews at the hands of Islam and do nothing about it. The man is not moved. We're talking now 3, 4, 5 years of this. Girls being raped and churches being destroyed, pleading for help, and he's not moved. There's something terribly wrong here. And I think it's ideological. So who is behind him? Who is behind a man who no one ever heard of? Was not a famous senator. He was just a senator, I think, for 2 years, and then he announced he was going to be run for president. Not big experience, comes out of nowhere, and he becomes president of the United States. How does this happen? It's a very good question. And I don't know, but there are evidently some very big forces around the world, and even here in America, that are behind him. All of these things that we see, all the illegals coming in without any type of plan, and just to come in and to come to America, take from America. They don't have to become citizens. They can all vote. The reduction of our armed services, all of these things. He couldn't, one man himself could not have thought up all these different things that are happening. It takes a group of people. Who that group is, who's doing the thinking, who's doing the funding, I can't say. I don't know.
Other questions? Keep them coming. We got about 10 minutes. Anybody have a question about the book?
I just have a comment, Mike. This is Sue Alt. I just wanted to tell you, Rabbi, that it was excellent. I loved reading it and reading all about your childhood and getting your perspective. So thank you so much. It was excellent.
Oh, thank you for saying so. Who did I just speak to?
Sue Alt in Columbus, Ohio.
Sue Alt from Ohio, the
Yep.
Buckeye State.
Yep. Other questions?
If Israel, God forbid, falls, if Obama can maneuver politically, diplomatically, with pressure, and Israel falls, Western civilization will fall. Islam, there's no question, is on a march to take over the world. And if it can topple the Judeo part of the Judeo-Christian partnership, then the rest of the West will fall. If the West can be so craven and so anti-biblical to participate and enable the fall of Jerusalem, then it will not have the strength to resist the onslaught of Islam, and worse, it will be complicit. I can tell you that if this would be 200 years ago or 150 years ago, when Christians still had absolute pride in their Christianity, and they believed that Christianity was right, and other things were false ideologies, they would have fought back a lot more. The fact that you can have in the United States of America, the foremost Christian country, no protests in front of the White House, no protests in any of the cities against a president who sits by while millions of Christians are killed, brothers of faith, all across the world, more than killed, purposely humiliated, beheaded, crucified, raped, purposely humiliated precisely because they're Christian. And I don't know of one protest in front of the White House. Christians 150 years ago would have been out there protesting. They would not have allowed such a thing because they would have seen this as a disaster for Christianity, an affront against Christianity. Their Christian identity would force them to stand up and to fight in behalf of Christianity. But we have a watered-down Christianity today like we have a watered-down Judaism. It's been taken over by the pop culture. It's been taken over by leftist ideology. And somehow people are embarrassed to be too religiously or ethnically proud. We've had 20, 30, 40, 50 years of this guilt thrown on us. Guilt against white, conservative Christians. Somehow we're guilty for everything. And so we don't rise up. We're tentative. We're confused. We don't have the pride we should have. But you have literally a genocide going on against Christians across the world, and we're not doing anything. We've been taught that, I don't know, that Christianity and Judaism now is just all about tolerance. So we're supposed to tolerate the intolerable. We're more concerned about not offending some Muslim than we are with defending the right of a Christian to live. We're more concerned about being sensitive to how a Muslim might feel if we defend Christianity than we are in keeping alive an innocent Christian girl somewhere in Africa before she gets raped or before her father gets his head cut off. The left-wing influence into the Christian and Jewish clergy has been such that we've lost sight of what's important and who we are. And so we're more concerned about not doing anything that might offend a Muslim, even if it means that our inaction allows a Christian to be killed and raped. What type of values are these? Life is more important than somebody else's sensitivity. And the woman's dignity, not to have her body invaded by a foreign conquest, is more important than somebody might be offended because you're defending Christianity, and how will that make some Muslim feel?
Yeah. Any other questions? We'll close with question one more. Rabbi, I'll ask the question, the last one, and then we'll close in prayer. But can the Congress and the Senate, if they pass that treaty or whatever they're going to call it with Iran, will they have the chance in our government to vote that down?
If Obama would follow the Constitution, he would be required, since this is a treaty, to bring it before the Congress, the Senate, to get it ratified. Because that's what the Constitution says, black on white, that treaties involving America with other countries have to be ratified by the Senate. But it appears that Obama defies the Constitution. He only uses it to his advantage, but he defies it when it's not to his liking. And so he won't bring it in front of the Senate. He'll call it an agreement instead of a treaty. Some say he might even bring it to the United Nations as opposed to the Senate itself, because Obama is not a nationalist, he's a transnationalist. He believes more so in a world body than he does the United States' own sovereignty and integrity. But an honorable person who swore to uphold the Constitution would definitely say, listen, I want this treaty and I'm going to try to persuade the senators, but if I can't, if they don't ratify it, what can I do? All presidents have had that problem. And sometimes they've been able to persuade senators, sometimes they haven't, but their respect for the Constitution made them live by the law of the Constitution. If it wasn't ratified, what could they do? But I don't think this president cares. And if he has a public relations problem, he'll say, well, it's not for the Senate because it's not really a treaty, it's an agreement, or it doesn't directly affect the United States, it affects the world, and the United States was just simply a negotiator. And that's everybody's concern. And it should be, because our safety and the safety of our children is all put at great risk and jeopardy if Iran has a bomb. Not just simply because they can directly harm us, but because they will have tremendous power. Once you have the power of the bomb, then you have the ability to use it as a threat and change policies in countries and freedoms in countries. So it does affect us. This is the problem when a country is not serious about who they elect, and they elect people for reasons of fashion, and someone looks cool, or they want to make a social statement, and they don't look to the real important issue about electing the man who will best protect themselves, the people, and their children. And we're suffering the consequences of our frivolity.
I want to, as before we close, and then I'll offer anybody that wants to say the prayer here. It looks dark when you hear all the things that happen, and I think about that the video I saw about the men in the orange suit, the Christians that were going to be beheaded. And when they pinned in on those guys' faces, they were praying before they were going to be killed for their faith. And so I thought the strength that they showed at that point, they knew they were going to die, and they were going to die for their faith. And they hung right in there and they prayed till the end. And then I think, what can we do? You know, we're just one person or a small group, but we can do a lot of things. We can pray. We can pray for our leaders to change. We can pray for our leaders to step forward. We can pray for Israel, because the Bible makes it very clear. Those who bless Israel, I'll bless, and those that curse Israel, I'll curse. But we have an opportunity to do our part, and you need to ask, what is your part? You can write a letter, you can pray, you can speak up, you can teach, you can learn about this subject. This book, Why Israel Matters, get it in the hands of people. And we send it to every senator and congressman. And we send it to a lot of the media people. So we got to pray they use it. And they bring R.E.A. Spiro on to speak about Israel, because I think he's called for such a time as this. But I think we're all called to this. And before you go to bed tonight, ask what you can do. And because we need to awaken this nation to what's happening. And the rabbi's right. I mean, Christians are being killed right and left, and nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's stepping up. So I'm going to end on that. And who wants to say the final prayer to close this out tonight? Somebody want to step forward?
Me, I'd like to.
Okay,
I'd like to do it.
you got it. Right. And we thank the rabbi for taking this time, and we thank all of you for being on here. I thought we lost this a little bit because there was some feedback, but I think everybody heard, right, Stephen? Everybody got everything. So we tried something new tonight. It worked, and so we thank Stephen, and we'll keep trying to progress in the area of how we're presenting this. Okay, Ray.
I want to say right before I pray for Rabbi Spiro is that we are fortunate to have a man like him come and speak to us. We're blessed to have it happen. Because when we're listening to him, we're listening to years and years and years and days of his studying and being studious and being out there and learning so that he could even come here this night and to write those books. He used the word identity a lot, Mike, but I can tell you in totalitarian governments, what they do, the two main things they do is steal your identity when they're crushing a country, steal your identity. The second thing they do is wipe out your history. They don't want you to have a history. That's why all the books have been changed and all the heroes changed. And now I want to say that, but now I want to pray I want to pray especially for a rabbi at first. Lord, we lift up Rabbi Spiro to you in the name of Jesus. And Lord, he needs greater protection because, Lord, you're the one that has been sending him places to speak. When we read his book and we see the places, the access he has to people and to different radio stations and TV stations, you have sent him there, Lord. He didn't do that himself. You have called him to this position to be a voice on the wall. That voice that was traveling out there. You have many people doing this, Lord. But Lord, he has accepted the challenge. So we pray for greater protection. We ask that you would loose from heaven, Lord, warring angels to be around him 24 hours a day. And then ministering angels to minister to he and his family, because it takes courage. Give him greater courage, Lord, greater courage. Give him wisdom and knowledge and understanding beyond his years, Lord. And Lord, you control his tongue. You control his tongue, Lord, and what he says. And Lord, we ask for that protection because there's a lot of people that like to stop him. And Lord, maybe we are some that just don't have all that access, but we can do something, as Coach Gottfried said. There's something we can do. There's something we can do, and the greatest weapon we have is prayer. And Lord, then there's things that you'll show us what we can do, Lord, individually and then corporately. Lord, let us not just stand back and do nothing. Let us not be in that position, Lord. The reason we even are on this to learn more about Israel. Israel, my beloved. Israel, my beloved. Israel, my beloved. We do pray for peace to be in the walls of Jerusalem. Peace, peace, peace to be in the walls of surround Prime Minister Netanyahu with godly counsel. And Lord, give him greater courage too, Lord. Greater courage. Chosen for that position, Lord. We ask for your protection for that nation, Lord. And Lord, we can say directly, as Israel goes, the world goes. We need the protection and we need their leadership. We stand with Israel, all of us on this
who are in the earshot of what we're doing. We say we stand with Israel. We stand with Israel. Israel, we stand with you. Now, Father, by the power of the Holy Spirit, I pray that you will reveal to us, each one, individually and corporately, what we can do. Give us dreams, give us visions of what we can do. May we be sensitive to the Holy Spirit, then may we do what the Holy Spirit tells us. Our Lord, we're sure to give you the praise and the glory and the honor right tonight. Amen.
Thank you, Ray. Have a good night. We appreciate everybody being on the call. Thank you, Rabbi.
Good night.
Thank you, Sue.